My name is Samantha. I'm 33 years old, an interior designer living in Seattle, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one in my family who always almost belonged. Not because I did anything wrong. I didn't rebel. I didn't move across the country out of spite. I just took a different path. I chose freedom, career, independence, things that, in my family, never quite held the same weight as marriage and motherhood. So when I offered to help plan our first big family vacation in years, this picture-perfect winter trip to Lake Tahoe, I thought maybe, finally, I'd earn my place. I paused client projects, booked experiences, sent personalized gifts ahead. I told myself, this time, I'll show up not just physically, but emotionally. I'll stop trying to prove anything and just be part of the family. But what happened when I arrived? That's the part I'll never forget. Snow was falling softly outside the lodge. My family had already arrived and was gathered at the front desk, laughing, chatting, holding hot cocoa like we were starring in a holiday movie. I wheeled my suitcase up beside them, just as the receptionist was handing out room keys. One for Richard and Nancy, one for Lauren and her husband, and one for the kids. I waited for mine, but there wasn't one. I asked, confused, "Is there a room for Samantha Walker?" The receptionist blinked. "I'm sorry, ma'am, you're not on the reservation." I turned to my family, expecting surprise, embarrassment, anything. Instead, my mom smiled awkwardly. "Oh, sweetie, we figured you could crash on the pullout in our suite. You're just one person." Just one person? I laughed quietly, but inside, something cracked open. That moment didn't just ruin a vacation. It revealed the truth I'd been trying to ignore my entire life. And what I did next? Well, no one saw it coming. I wish I could say this moment, the one at the front desk in Tahoe, was some shocking, out-of-character thing for my family. But the truth is, it wasn't. That's the part that hurts the most. Because somewhere, deep down, I think I expected it. I didn't want to. I tried not to. But when you've spent your whole life feeling like the background character in your own family story, it's hard to be surprised when you're once again written out of the script. I'm not the dramatic one, by the way. That's what they always say when I try to bring things up. "You're being sensitive, Sam. You read too much into things." So I learned to smile through it, to be the cool aunt, the dependable daughter, the one who asks how everyone else is doing, but never gets asked in return. Growing up, it was always my sister Lauren who fit in naturally. She's 2 years older, PTA president material even in high school, prom queen, college sweetheart, now married to Matt and mother of 2 kids under 10 who apparently never stop needing her. She lives 3 blocks from our parents, in the same town we grew up in, Springfield, Oregon. You can practically hear the Hallmark Channel music playing over her life. And me? I took a different path. I moved to Seattle, built a life on my own terms. I have my own business now, a design studio with clients across the West Coast. I work with real estate developers, restaurants, even high-end cabin rentals like the one we were staying at. I'm proud of what I've built, but my success has always been treated like a fun fact at best. "That's great, Sam," my mom says, before switching topics to Lauren's new air fryer. Still, when we started planning the family trip this year, I wanted to believe this time might be different. I thought maybe, just maybe, They'd see me for who I am now, not the artsy one or the single one or the career girl, but as an adult who shows up, contributes, and deserves to be treated as more than an afterthought. So I threw myself into it. I researched Tahoe like it was a client project. I booked snowshoeing trails, made dinner reservations that could accommodate picky eaters and kids, even designed a digital itinerary with little icons and emojis for each day's activities. I mailed ahead personalized gifts for everyone, cozy beanies for the kids, monogrammed gloves for my parents, and a gourmet cocoa sampler I thought Lauren and Matt would enjoy by the fireplace. I paused my biggest interior renovation of the year, rescheduled client meetings, and left my assistant with detailed notes so I could be fully present. I told myself it was worth it, that investing in family, no matter how painful the history, was still worth the effort. Because underneath the sarcasm and silence and years of subtle rejection, I still wanted to belong. I didn't expect a red carpet, but I did expect a room. I guess I thought showing up fully, emotionally, financially, logistically, would finally earn me a space in their plans. Not just metaphorically, but literally. A room, a bed, a small but visible sign that I mattered. But that moment at the lodge shattered the illusion. Still, as I stood there in the snow with my duffel bag and my heart slowly sinking, I tried to tell myself it was just a miscommunication, that it could still be salvaged. I was wrong. And what happened next? Well, it didn't just break something open. It changed everything. It started months before the trip ever began. Back in September, my mom sent out a group text, thinking about a winter family vacation, maybe Lake Tahoe, thoughts? Lauren responded within 5 minutes with a thumbs up emoji and a message about how the kids would love playing in the snow. Dad chimed in with something about skiing. Matt said nothing, as usual. I waited a bit before replying, just to make sure I didn't seem too eager. Then I offered to help plan the logistics. Happy to research cabins and activities, I texted, attaching a snowflake gif like a dork. To my surprise, they agreed. That was all I needed, a little green light. I poured myself into the planning like I would for a high-end client. I spent nights researching Tahoe lodges, reading guest reviews about fireplaces and snowplow service, mapping out grocery delivery options, and making sure every suite had separate bathrooms, because I do know how Lauren gets when she can't take her quiet baths. I created a custom PDF itinerary and uploaded it to Google Drive. I called it Winter Magic Family Getaway 2024. It had color-coded days, icons for each activity, and family-friendly ratings next to every restaurant I shortlisted. I even included backup indoor options in case of snowstorms. To be clear, no one asked me to do any of this, but no one stopped me either. I figured if I could just make everything perfect, maybe they'd stop seeing me as the weird one who left town. Maybe they'd appreciate the version of me who shows up, not just professionally, but for them. I ordered matching beanies for the kids, blue for Jake, lavender for Ella, and included a handwritten note with each. I booked a sleigh ride I knew my mom would love because she still talks about the one she took as a teenager in Vermont. I even reserved a quiet wine tasting for the adults after dinner one night, thinking maybe, just maybe, Lauren and I could talk like sisters again, not just trade holiday small talk and kid updates. Work-wise, I postponed 2 major client meetings. The last-minute changes to the lodge reservation system almost derailed one of my biggest design projects of the year, but I made it work. I had my assistant Caroline take point on everything that wasn't an emergency, and I set my phone to vacation mode, promising myself I'd only check email once a day. Because this trip, this week, wasn't supposed to be about work. It was supposed to be about connection, about doing what families are supposed to do: make memories, have inside jokes, take snow selfies in matching flannel pajamas. So when I landed in Tahoe and saw the snowy peaks rising in the distance, I felt something rare around my family: hope. Hope that we could share meals where everyone actually listened. Hope that maybe I'd be treated like an equal, like an adult, not the backup plan or the extra body on the trip. Hope that this year would finally be the one where I didn't feel like an outsider tagging along. And for a brief moment, that hope felt real. But the thing about hope is it hurts more when it's betrayed. And that's exactly what happened next. The lobby smelled like pine wood and fresh-baked cookies. Someone was playing instrumental holiday jazz through the speakers, and snow was gently falling outside the large picture windows. For a moment, it really did feel like one of those picture-perfect family vacation ads you see on Instagram. I was the last one to arrive. My flight into Reno had been delayed, so by the time I got to the lodge, everyone else was already there. My parents were standing near the fireplace, chatting with my sister Lauren, who was wrangling her kids into their oversized puffer jackets. They looked up and smiled as I came through the sliding doors. "Sam, you made it," my mom said, coming over to hug me. "Was the drive terrible?" "Not bad," I replied, brushing snowflakes off my coat. "You guys all settled in?" "Just about to check in now," she said cheerfully, then turned to the front desk. "We have a reservation under Nancy Walker, 3 suites." 3? I blinked. I must have misheard. The woman at the counter, a young brunette with a gold name tag that read Chloe, typed a few things into her computer and nodded. "Yes, I see it here. 3 suites under Walker, each with mountain views, fireplaces, and private balconies." I stepped up beside my mom. "There should be a 4th room, one in my name too, Samantha Walker." Chloe's fingers tapped the keyboard again, slower this time. She glanced at me, then back to the screen. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I only see 3 rooms booked." There was a pause, one of those heavy, stretched-out silences that somehow last 1,000 years. I turned to my parents. "You didn't book me a room?" My dad gave an awkward shrug. "Well, your mom and I figured you could stay with us. The sofa pulls out." Like it was no big deal. Like I hadn't rearranged my life to make this trip happen. Like I was still some college kid crashing with my parents for Thanksgiving, not a 33-year-old woman who had spent hours organizing their vacation down to the minute. "You're serious?" I asked, trying to keep my voice from cracking. Lauren looked up from scrolling on her phone. "We just assumed you'd be fine. It's not like you need much space. No offense." No offense. The 2 most offensive words in the English language when paired with that tone. "I would have booked my own room if I'd known," I said, blinking hard. "You guys didn't think to tell me?" My mom stepped in with her signature smile, the one she uses when trying to avoid confrontation. "Sweetie, it just made more sense with the bundle rate. 3 rooms was the package deal. We didn't think it was a big deal. To them, maybe it wasn't. But to me, it was a reminder that I was never part of the default plan, never automatically included, always the one making space for others, and rarely, if ever, having space made for me." Behind me, Chloe cleared her throat gently. "Unfortunately, we're completely booked this week. There's a real estate summit in town. I can check the overflow list, but..." I nodded mechanically, already knowing the answer. It wasn't coming. My hands were still on the check-in counter, but I could feel myself drifting. Out of the room, out of the moment, out of the illusion I'd worked so hard to protect. And what followed after that? Well, it was the moment everything finally broke open. I wheeled my suitcase into my parents' suite in complete silence. The room was warm, with a crackling fireplace and throw blankets folded neatly over the armchairs. It even smelled nice, like cedar wood and vanilla, but all I could focus on was the couch, the pull-out couch, my bed. My mom was already unpacking, carefully laying her sweaters in the drawers like this was the most natural thing in the world. My dad had turned on the TV and was watching the end of a college basketball game like we hadn't just had a deeply awkward public scene 5 minutes ago. I stood there, suitcase still in hand, like a house guest waiting to be told where to go. No one said anything. Eventually, my mom glanced over her shoulder and said, "The pullout is pretty comfortable. I'll ask housekeeping to bring extra blankets." I didn't respond. I didn't trust my voice to stay steady if I did. And so began the next phase of the vacation, the passive-aggressive silence. The kind where nothing is technically wrong, but everything feels wrong. At lunch that day, we sat poolside. The kids were eating chicken fingers. My dad ordered a beer. My mom was going on about how beautiful the snow looked on the mountains. Lauren flipped through photos on her phone and casually said, "So, how's the couch, Sam?" She said it with a smile, a fake one, like it was a joke, but not really. I gave a tight-lipped smile back. "Great, feels just like family." Matt chuckled nervously. My mom cleared her throat and changed the subject. That's how it went, over and over. Nobody said sorry. Nobody asked how I felt. Nobody even acknowledged that what happened at check-in was hurtful. Instead, they steamrolled right through it, like it was an unfortunate hotel mix-up, not a choice they had actively made to exclude me. The days blur together. Every activity revolved around Lauren's kids. Sledding, snow angels, hot cocoa in the lodge cafe. Not once did anyone ask if I wanted to do something else. Not once did they ask what I needed. I felt like a babysitter they hadn't paid. Worse, I felt invisible. At one point, I tried to suggest visiting a nearby art gallery I'd read about, the kind of small local place that features mountain-themed exhibits and artisan crafts. I mentioned it gently over breakfast while everyone was discussing what to do that day. "There's this gallery in town," I said. "They're doing a winter-themed pop-up. Could be fun." Lauren didn't even look up from her phone. "Sounds boring," she said. "The kids wouldn't last 5 minutes." I almost asked, "So we're structuring the entire vacation around an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old? But I didn't. I just swallowed it like I always do. The pattern was becoming painfully clear. Make it seem like I'm part of the group, just enough to keep things polite, but not enough to actually include me. Later that night, as I lay on the lumpy pull-out bed, listening to my parents snore from the next room, I stared at the ceiling and asked myself a question I'd been avoiding for years. Why do I keep coming back to people who treat me like a guest in my own family? And the answer, for the first time, was terrifyingly honest. Because I'm still hoping they'll change. But what happened the next day? That hope shattered completely. By the third night of our so-called vacation, I was emotionally threadbare. I'd played along, joined the group snowball fight, posed for pictures I knew would be filtered and captioned #FamilyTime, laughed at my dad's corny jokes, and sat through 2 full rounds of Candyland with the kids, even though I was dying for a quiet moment alone. I kept hoping someone would pull me aside, say, "Hey, we messed up. We should have booked you your own room. That wasn't okay." But it never came. Instead, the unspoken expectation was clear. Keep smiling, don't make a scene, and be grateful for the scraps of inclusion tossed your way. That night, we had dinner at a high-end restaurant tucked into the base of the mountain. The kind of place with dim lighting, velvet booths, and a menu where the prices are listed like an afterthought. Everyone was in good spirits. My mom was dressed up in a deep green sweater and pearls. My dad ordered a bottle of Pinot Noir like he knew what he was doing. Lauren was bragging about how Ella's teachers said she had leadership potential, and Matt nodded along like he hadn't heard the story 3 times already. I sat there quietly, swirling my water, thinking about the gallery I never got to visit, thinking about the bed I'd be crawling back into later, pull-out springs digging into my back like a metaphor. Then the conversation turned to the next day's plans. "We're thinking snow tubing in the morning," Lauren said, scrolling through her phone. "Then maybe a movie night in the lodge." My dad nodded. "That sounds fun. Everyone good with that?" I took a breath. "Actually, I was hoping we could visit the sculpture trail I mentioned. It's only open one more day, and I think Mom would really like it." Lauren didn't even look up. "The kids won't want to do that." I paused. "Not everything has to revolve around the kids, Lauren." Her head snapped up. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," I said, quieter this time, but clearer. "I've been here. I've participated, but I've also been ignored. I haven't had a say in a single activity. I'm tired of pretending that's okay." Everyone froze. My mom's eyes darted nervously between us. My dad cleared his throat and reached for his wine like it might shield him from what was coming. Lauren laughed, one of those short, sharp, condescending ones. "So now this is about you? You're mad because you didn't get your way?" "No," I said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "I'm hurt because I wasn't considered at all. I planned this trip. I sacrificed work. And you couldn't even give me a bed or a voice." "It's always something with you," she snapped. "You act like the world should rearrange itself just because you're single and have a flexible job." That was it. I pushed my chair back and stood up slowly. The table went dead silent. Even the waiter, who had been approaching with the dessert menu, backed away without a word. "I'm not doing this," I said. "Not this time." My mom blinked. "Doing what, sweetheart?" "Shrinking myself to fit in," I said. "Pretending I'm okay being the afterthought. I'm done." I reached for my purse, took one last sip of water, because somehow, even in that moment, I needed to steady myself, and turned toward the exit. Lauren scoffed. "Oh, come on. Now you're storming out? Really?" I didn't look back. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty for walking away. Where was I going? Honestly, I wasn't sure. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going back to that pull-out couch. I walked out into the cold, my boots crunching against the snow-covered steps as I made my way to the parking lot. The mountain air hit my face like a wake-up slap, sharp, honest, and bracing. For a few seconds, I just stood there, under a canopy of stars, trying to catch my breath. I wasn't crying. That surprised me. I wasn't even angry anymore. What I felt was hollow, not in a broken way, more like a space had been cleared out. Something heavy had finally been scooped out of me after years of carrying it. I pulled out my phone, opened my hotel app, and started scrolling. Everything in Tahoe was either fully booked or wildly overpriced. I expanded my search radius. Eventually, I found a small boutique cabin lodge about 40 minutes away, just outside Truckee. It only had one unit left, a private one-bedroom cabin with a fireplace and mountain views. It was well beyond what I'd budgeted for this trip, but suddenly I didn't care. I booked it without a second thought. 10 minutes later, I was in a taxi, watching the twinkling lights of the resort disappear behind me through the rear window. My phone buzzed with texts, my mom, my dad, Lauren, but I didn't open a single one. Not because I wanted to punish them, because I needed space, real, physical, emotional space, the kind I had never been allowed to have before. When we arrived at the cabin lodge, the front desk clerk, a woman named Marina, greeted me with the kind of warmth that made me want to cry, just because it had been so long since I felt welcomed anywhere. She handed me the keys and said, "You're gonna love this place. It's peaceful out here. No noise, no chaos, just you and the mountains." And she was right. The cabin was small, rustic, but beautiful. Wood beams, soft lighting, a clawfoot tub, and a deck that overlooked a grove of snow-dusted pines. I dropped my bag inside the door, kicked off my boots, and let out the kind of exhale that only happens when you're finally, truly alone. Not lonely, alone. There's a difference. I made a cup of tea, wrapped myself in the thickest blanket I could find, and sat by the fireplace. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, I stopped performing. I didn't have to smile to keep the peace or laugh at passive-aggressive jokes. I didn't have to ask about other people's lives while they forgot to ask about mine. I just existed. And in that stillness, something clicked. Maybe the problem wasn't just that they didn't make space for me. Maybe the deeper issue was that I kept trying to earn space I should have always had. I had bent, compromised, tolerated, softened edges, and swallowed pain just to be tolerated. And for what? To sleep on a pull-out couch? To be told I was difficult when I asked for respect? No more. That night, I journaled, I read, I sat with my own thoughts without running from them, and I let the silence remind me of something I had forgotten. I am enough, exactly as I am. I didn't need a room in their hotel to prove I belonged. I had built a room of my own, this cabin, this space, this peace, and it was more than enough. But the next morning, that's when things took an even more unexpected turn. I hadn't answered their texts in over 24 hours. I guess they got worried, or maybe guilty. Either way, I was surprised when the front desk called my cabin early the next morning. The receptionist, Marina, sounded hesitant. "Hi, Samantha. There's a group here asking for you. They say they're your family." For a second, I just stood there holding the phone in silence. "They said they called every lodge in a 50-mile radius," Marina added gently. "I wasn't sure if I was supposed to tell you." I sighed. "No, it's okay. I figured this might happen." I threw on a coat over my pajamas, slipped into boots, and made my way down the snowy path toward the main lodge. Part of me was bracing for another confrontation. Part of me was just tired. When I stepped into the lounge area, there they were, my parents, Lauren, Matt, and the kids, looking completely out of place among the quiet retreat goers, sipping herbal tea and reading hardcovers by the fire. My mom stood up first. "Sam, honey," I held up my hand. "Before you say anything, why are you here?" Lauren didn't wait. "You just ghosted us in the middle of a family vacation." "I didn't ghost anyone," I replied calmly. "I left on purpose. I needed space." "You could have said something." "I tried multiple times," I said. "No one listened. No one cared until I physically left." My dad stepped in. "We know we screwed up. We just want to talk." There was an awkward pause. My niece Ella quietly offered me a cookie from the tray beside her. I took it, smiled at her, then looked back at my family. You can talk, but I'm not coming back with you. My mom's eyes softened. We understand. We really do. Lauren folded her arms. So what now? You just stay here like you're punishing us? I shook my head. This isn't punishment. This is protection. I'm choosing peace. Matt, surprisingly, was the one to speak next. Honestly, I think you needed this. And maybe we needed this wake-up call too. Lauren shot him a look, but he didn't flinch. I turned to her. Do you know how humiliating it was to stand at that front desk and be told I wasn't even on the reservation? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For once, she didn't have a comeback. We made assumptions, my dad admitted, and we treated you like a footnote. That's not okay. It's been happening for years, I said softly. The difference is, now, I finally stopped accepting it. I could feel the weight of those words hanging in the room. Not angry, not dramatic, just true. We're not here to drag you back, my mom said. We just want to know what you need. I looked around at the peaceful lodge, the snowy trees outside, the quiet I'd found here that I never got back home. I need boundaries, I said. I need to be treated like an adult with value. That starts with respect and space. To their credit, they didn't argue. Instead, we talked. Not everything got fixed, but for the first time, they listened. No interruptions, no defensive jokes, just silence and understanding. We agreed to meet again the next day for a walk through the sculpture trail, something I'd suggested before, something no one had paid attention to. This time, they did. It wasn't a reunion, it wasn't reconciliation, but maybe it was a beginning. And that's what led to the conversation that would change how I approached every relationship from that moment on. The next morning, we met again. Just the adults this time. We chose the sunroom off the main lodge. It was quiet, with large windows that framed the snowy forest like a postcard. A kettle of herbal tea sat between us on a low table, untouched. I had asked for the meeting, not to rehash everything, but to talk about how, or if, we moved forward. We sat in silence for a long moment. No one reached for the tea. Then, finally, I spoke. I'm not interested in punishing anyone, I said, but I can't keep showing up the same way anymore. Something has to change. My mom nodded quietly, hands clasped in her lap. My dad sighed. We want things to be better, but we don't always know how. I can tell you what I need, I offered, but I can't be the only one doing the work. Lauren had been quiet the whole time, arms crossed, her gaze fixed on the window. Then, out of nowhere, she said something I didn't expect. You know, she began, voice low, I always thought you were the lucky one. I looked at her, unsure if I'd heard right. You got to move away, she continued. You didn't have to be the daughter who stayed, who did the holidays, who took care of things when mom and dad got older. You got to have your own life. It wasn't an apology, but it was honesty, and that was something we hadn't given each other in years. You're right, I said gently. I got freedom, but I paid for it in other ways. I got left out, dismissed, treated like an accessory to this family instead of a full member. She nodded slowly. I guess we both had our own version of being overlooked. There it was, mutual acknowledgement, a starting point. From there, we began laying out something that resembled new terms, not a contract, not a list of demands, but a shift in how we'd relate to each other going forward. I told them I wouldn't be joining every family vacation by default anymore, especially if I wasn't given the same consideration as everyone else. If I'm invited, it needs to be intentional, not assumed or last minute. And I will always have my own space, physically and emotionally. We talked about how I'd participate in ways that felt good for me, without guilt or pressure to be the good sport who goes along with things that hurt. My parents agreed to try, to listen more, to check in instead of assume. And Lauren, well, she didn't promise anything, but she did say this: "I can't undo how we made you feel, but I don't want you to feel that way anymore." That was enough for now. We wrapped things up with something simple, a plan to walk the sculpture trail that afternoon, just the four of us. No kids, no distractions, just space to practice being different with each other. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. And for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like I was performing for their approval. It felt like I was participating on my own terms. That walk marked the beginning of something new, not just with them, but with myself. Because once I learned to speak my truth and stand in it, something else started to shift inside me. And what happened after I returned home? That's when the real change began. The last few days of my solo stay at the cabin passed like a quiet exhale. There were no dramatic moments, no urgent texts, no family emergencies demanding my emotional labor. Just snowy walks under towering pines, long mornings sipping coffee by the fire, and quiet evenings journaling or listening to the wind outside my window. Peace didn't come all at once. It settled gradually, like fresh snowfall. And for the first time in years, I let myself feel it without guilt. The sleigh ride we'd agreed to was surprisingly pleasant. My niece leaned against me the whole time, wrapped in 3 scarves and asking endless questions about the horses. My mom held my dad's hand. Lauren didn't say much, but when she caught my eye, she smiled. Not the performative kind, but something softer, something real. That night, back at the cabin, I poured myself a glass of wine and stood out on the deck looking at the stars. The sky was so clear, I could see the Milky Way stretching across the black. I thought about all the years I'd begged for a seat at the table, all the ways I'd tried to be small and palatable just to feel loved. And now, I had stopped begging. And somehow, the love felt more genuine when I didn't have to shrink for it. The real win wasn't that my family apologized or that we hashed out decades of unresolved tension in 1 week. We didn't. Healing doesn't work like that. The real win was me, learning to stop waiting for other people to validate my worth. I had made space for myself where there wasn't any. I had walked away from the table and built a new one with room for honesty, for boundaries, for peace. And here's the surprising part. When I did that, my family started to show up differently. Not perfectly, but earnestly. And that meant something. We're still figuring things out. We've started a monthly family check-in, which, surprisingly, Lauren initiated. My mom now asks before making assumptions. My dad actually texted me a picture of his new living room and said, "Could use your designer's eye." Baby steps, but steps nonetheless. As for me, I've returned to work with a new sense of clarity. I've raised my rates, I've stopped taking on clients who treat me like I'm disposable, and I've started building more of the life I want, not the one I think will make everyone else comfortable. So if you're still listening, thank you. truly. Because maybe you've been there too. Maybe you've been the one sleeping on the metaphorical pull-out couch, grateful just to be included, even when inclusion came with invisible terms and conditions. If this story resonated with you, please like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to this channel for more real stories about healing, boundaries, and reclaiming your voice. You deserve peace. You deserve space. And you don't need anyone's permission to claim it. Until next time, take care of yourself and take up space. You're allowed.